Good morning, students. Hope you'll be fine at your respective places. Now, we have discussed the structure of DNA. We have discussed the structure of what we call as RNA, different types of RNA we have discussed. And today we will try to what we call as discuss the various properties of the genetic material. अगर हम डीएनए की बात कर लेंगे, DNA is a genetic material. That means it transfers characters from parents to the offsprings in majority of the organisms. In all organisms. या अगर हम बात कर लेंगे DNA is a genetic material in most of the organisms rather अगर in most organisms. Whereas अगर हम RNA की बात कर लेंगे, RNA is a genetic material also. RNA is a genetic material, लेकिन ये genetic material किस किस में है? It is genetic material in TMV, tobacco mosaic virus. It is genetic material in bacteriophage. These are some of the examples where we will see that this RNA is a genetic material. लेकिन what we will see, the DNA is the genetic material in most organisms. अगर हम फंक्शंस की बात करेंगे दिस आरएनए की, आरएनए अगर हम बात करें, इट मेनली परफॉर्म्स द फंक्शंस ऑफ मैसेंजर, it mainly performs the function of adapter. These are some of the functions which are being performed by this RNA. Now, how the genetic this RNA perform this? Yeah, what is the difference? The genetic is the DNA is the genetic material in most of the organism. RNA is a genetic material in few organisms like TMV and bacteriophage. RNA can mainly perform the functions of messenger. RNA can mainly perform the functions of this adapter. And all these differences जो अगर हम बात करेंगे, they are mainly due to the chemical structure जो हम बात करते हैं in DNA and RNA. Are you all well aware about that? Both of these DNA and RNA, they have got the pentose sugar. But in case of the DNA, it is the deoxyribose. While as in case of this RNA, it is the ribose sugar. Both of them, they contains the nitrogen. That is what we call as the purines and pyrimidines. Purines and pyrimidines. While as in case of this ribose, it too has got purines and pyrimidines. Now see where the difference lies. In case of these purines, we will see adenine and guanine. They are both present in both the cases. And in case of pyrimidine, we have got cytosine and thymine. While as in case of this, what we call as this, there is the uracil and what we call as this thymine, which is present in this case. So what we will see that in case of this RNA, what we call as this, this uracil and cytosine that is present in this case. So these are some of the differences which which is found in what we call as both of these cases. So what we will see that these are some of the differences between the DNA and the genetic material. Now, in DNA and RNA, now both of these, they perform some what we call as this properties which the genetic material can have. What are those properties? Let us try to discuss one by one. First one, जो first property है, that is replication. What we see, this replication, it simply means the duplication of genetic material. It simply means the duplication of genetic material. And what we will see, this duplication जो हम देखते हैं, it is shown by both DNA as well as RNA. Replication simply means it simply means the duplication of genetic material by the process of this replication, and this process is shown by both DNA as well as RNA. अगर हम एक और बात करेंगे, if we take the three process, that is the protein, we will take the DNA, we will take the RNA. अगर हम प्रोटीन्स की बात कर लेंगे, दे आर ऑल्सो प्रेजेंट इन द लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म, बट दे डू नॉट exhibit this property. They do not undergo the process of replication. DNA, it undergoes the process of replication. RNA, it undergoes the process of replication. So we will see here, we will write there one by one. Property, we will read here DNA, we will here at RNA, then this is the protein. First जो हमारे पास प्रॉपर्टी है, that is this replication. replication की हम बात कर लेंगे, DNA show replication, RNA show replication, but this protein, it does not show the property of replication, and this replication simply means the duplication of the genetic material. Second property which is there, which is the property of genetic material, that is the stability. What do we mean by the stability? That is जो genetic material होते हैं, that they should exist this stability of genetic material. There must be the stability in the in this genetic material. This genetic material, it should not change. What we call as its structure, it should not change its structure with change in stages of life. Second one, with change in its age, with change in its physiology, etc. So we will see जो genetic material है, it should exist in genetic material जो है, it should show the stability, and the stability जो है genetic material, it should not change. हम ये कहेंगे कि जो this genetic material, it should not change its structure with change in the stages of life, with change in the age, with the change in the age, or we will see it should not change the stability with the physiology. We will study the experiment that is called as the Grips experiment. उसने एक experiment किया था, that is the transforming principle. उस experiment किया था, that is called as transforming principle. अब वहां पर हम क्या देखते हैं कि जो DNA है, it even what we will see survived in heat killed bacteria. What we will see, that is जो strands है, both the strands of DNA, they are complementary, they are necessary for each other. What we will see, both the strands of DNA which are complementary can be separated. RNA is liable and easily degradable. ये डिग्रेड भी हो सकता है due to the presence of 2OH, what we call as this 2OH group. These 2OH group are present in the pentose sugar. At this is the carbon first, is the carbon second, it is the carbon third, and this is the carbon fourth. Here we will see the OH bond, and here we will see the OH bond. So what we will see in case of the RNA, what we will see, that RNA is liable and it is degradable because it has got the presence of 2OH groups which are present in the ribose molecule. रखा याद. Now this RNA अगर हम बात कर लेंगे is catalytic. It has become what we call as, it is somewhat reactive also. but DNA is more suitable than RNA. DNA की अगर हम बात कर लेंगे, DNA is more suitable than RNA. It is what we call as, it is said to be better genetic material, because what we will see in DNA, अगर हम pyrimidines की नाइट्रोजन बेस की बात करेंगे, it has got thymine, whereas in case of RNA we will get this uracil, and this presence of thymine in DNA instead of this uracil is also one more reason for the stability of this DNA, is also one of the reason which leads to the stability of the DNA. First is that in case of RNA there are two these OH groups which are present at carbon second and carbon third of the pentose sugar, and because of these जितने भी ज्यादा हाइड्रोक्सिल ग्रुप होंगे, OH ग्रुप होंगे, फंक्शनल ग्रुप्स रादर होंगे, उतना ज्यादा जो कंपाउंड होता है वो उतना ज्यादा रिएक्टिव होता है. सो इट इज नॉट टू मच स्टेबल एज कंपेयर टू दैट ऑफ द DNA. अगर हम DNA की बात करेंगे, एट सी कार्बन सेकंड इट हैज गॉट H, इट हैज गॉट H वहां पर, लेकिन इसके हिसाब से वहां पर सिर्फ अब इसके पास एक ही OH ग्रुप बन जाता है, एंड इट मेक्स इट द लेस रिएक्टिव एज कंपेयर टू दैट ऑफ द RNA. सो DNA इज मोर स्टेबल देन RNA. सेकंड वन, अगर हम ये देखेंगे नाइट्रोजन बेसिस में, DNA हैज गॉट थायमीन, साइटोसिन एंड थायमीन. अगर हम बात करेंगे इन केस ऑफ pyrimidines, where in case of the RNA it is cytosine and uracil, the presence of the thymine instead of the uracil has made this DNA more stable than that of the RNA. So this is second condition, but both them are what we call as stable. लेकिन हम ये बात कहेंगे जो स्टेबिलिटी है, in case of the DNA it is more stable as compared to that of the RNA. Third, so we can say the genetic material, they must show the stability, they must does not change, what we called as with the change in the stages of life, with the age, with the what we call as the physiology. Third, अगर हम बात करेंगे, that is the mutation. Mutation means sudden changes, rather sudden change in the genetic makeup of an organism. So we will see genetic material जो होगा, it should be able to undergo mutation, and such a change अगर हम बात करेंगे, what are the changes they take place in the genetic material, it should be inherited. म्यूटेशन की हम बात कर लेंगे, दैट देयर मस्ट बी सडन चेंज इन द genetic makeup of in the gene, so that these changes they must be inherited, कि वो वहां पर नहीं रहे, that must be inherited. अगर हम बात करेंगे both what we call as the nucleic acids of DNA and nucleic acids of DNA and RNA, अगर हम इनकी बात कर लेंगे, they have the capacity to mutate, they undergo mutation. हाँ, ये देखा गया है, RNA it mutates faster than the DNA, RNA it mutates, it undergoes changes faster than that of the DNA. Now we have got certain organisms like the viruses which have got the RNA. virus की अगर हम बात करेंगे, they show mutation, and this mutation it leads to the evolution. And these viruses, when they show mutation, they evolve, they undergo evolution at a faster rate, and thus they have shorter lifespan because they undergo the evolution at a very much faster rate. Fourth, अगर हम बात कर लेंगे, in organisms की, that is genetic expression. Genetic expression की हम बात कर लेंगे. We have got the this RNA. RNA express easily the characters in the form of proteins. RNA expresses itself easily in the form of proteins. DNA requires, अब DNA को क्या चाहिए? DNA it needs RNA, इसको RNA चाहिए for the formation of these protein. So दूसरी बात, DNA is more stable as compared, DNA being more stable is considered better than the RNA for storage of the genetic information. RNA की अगर हम बात कर लेंगे, RNA what we will see, it expresses easily the characters in the form of the protein. दूसरी बात अगर हम बात DNA, it requires RNA for the formation of protein. That means DNA is more stable and is considered better than the RNA for the storage of genetic information. लेकिन अगर हम बात कर लेंगे किसकी, for transmission of genetic material, RNA that gives better results. अगर हम बात कर लेंगे किसकी, for transmission of genetic characters, for the transmission of genetic character, RNA shows better results. So these are some of the properties of genetic material. First, replication. Replication simply means the duplication of the genetic material, and that is shown by the both these DNA and RNA, while these proteins and other compounds, they do not show these properties. Stability, अगर हम बात कर लेंगे stability of genetic material, there must be the stability of the genetic material, and this genetic material, it should not change its structure easily with changed stages of life, with changed stages of age, with changed stages of physiology of living beings. अब हम कहेंगे कि डीएनए इज मोर स्टेबल. उसकी वजह एक है कि दोनों जो डीएनए एंड आरएनए, दे आर मेड अप ऑफ द पेंटोज शुगर. अगर हम देखिए पेंटोज शुगर में, डीएनए में हम देखेंगे देयर इज functional group OH at carbon 3, while as in case of the RNA there is a functional group at two places, that is at carbon 3rd and carbon 2nd. Too many functional groups makes the compound more reactive. So RNA is more reactive as compared to the DNA. So DNA is more stable. Second one, in DNA we will see, अगर हम नाइट्रोजन बेसिस की बात करेंगे, it has got pyrimidine, cytosine and thymine, while as in case of RNA it is cytosine and uracil. So having this thymine instead of this uracil, it also adds to the stability of this compound. Mutation, genetic material should be able to undergo mutation, and वो चेंजेस ऐसी होनी चाहिए that should be inherited. अब RNA जो है, it mutates at a very fast rate when compared to that of the DNA. अगर हम ये कहेंगे, what we will see, viruses, they have got the RNA, they mutate, they undergo evolution at a faster rate, so they have got a very, what we will see, a short span of life. Genetic expression, RNA अगर हम बात करेंगे, the genetic material, it must express itself. RNA की अगर हम बात, it expresses easily what we call as the characters in the form of these proteins. Now DNA, it requires RNA for the formation of these proteins. So DNA being more stable than this RNA is considered better than what we call RNA for the storage of this protein, for the storage of genetic what we call the information. However, for transmission of genetic what we call as characters, RNA gives better results. This was all about today's topic, that is the properties of the genetic material. we will proceed further. In the next video we will try to proceed further. Until then, goodbye. God bless you. Thanks.